Why don't we go ahead and get started? So I have been in meetings for the last full day or so. It doesn't look like there have been any further comments since I made updates to the governance doc, though. Matt, am I correct in reading that?
Finding it right now, but I haven't been notified, so I assume so.
Okay.
Clear governance draft, yeah. Initial public draft of governance doc. Yep, last comment was back in August.
Okay. In that case, I did notify the public that we would take a vote of ratification on this call. So I will hereby say all in favor of voting to approve this governance doc, say aye.
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 Aye. I think that means that there are no opposed.
It was unanimously passed. God, I need to drink some of my coffee. It was unanimously passed.
Unanimously passed. Okay, so I think then that you, as the master administrator, can move the governance doc to production.
Okay. Let me. Do you want me to screen share or just do it?
Just do it. And then our next order of operations from a legal and governance perspective will be to, we will need to elect a steering committee. And for that, we will need to gather candidates. And for that, I would propose that we spend a little bit of time with our prospective sponsors, who are not always on these calls, but who may have want to have a say in how things are run, and see if we can stir up a few candidates. And so I would propose that we have the elections somewhere between between 4 and 6 weeks from now. Does anyone have feelings about that? Whether it's before Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving?
No, not really. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to read. That's a tough time of year. Like, do you think we'll get more before Thanksgiving, or do you think that we'll have a chance between the two holidays?
I don't know. I'm also hopeful that I'm hopeful that when the Conservancy's evaluation committee meets next month, that they will review our application then. They may still come back to us with further questions. They may not vote on us at that time. I don't know. I think it would be nice to be able to say, yes, we have a steering committee in place, but that's why I'm thinking a month from now.
Sure. All right. Yeah. I mean, that's what we got to do.
Okay. Stephen, do you have any questions or thoughts about the roles on the steering committee, or how you would like to see it constituted?
I would like to nominate myself as maybe a technical community leader.
Okay, so per the governance doc, Matt is benevolent dictator for the first year as the founder. You absolutely can nominate yourself to be a committer. And I think that's yeah, we would love more committers. I know Matt would love more committers. But on the steering committee, There would be the steering committee chair, who kind of takes on the bulk of the administrative responsibilities, and also the treasurer, who's a second set of eyes on all expenditures. And then the technical committee leader, who is, as I say, Matt for the first year.
Okay, gotcha.
And then there is also room for a curriculum lead and a marketing lead. So all of those job descriptions effectively are in the governance doc, if you wanted to take some time to review those as well. That being said, being a committer would be sort of the obvious stepping stone to being a, committee leader next, or technical community leader next year.
Sure. I think I read it wrong, but that's okay. Yes, I would like to be a committer then.
Okay.
Or nominate myself as a committer.
Excellent.
I mean, self-medicate for me is kind of like low-hanging fruit there. Do you have any other interest in other projects?
I do have interest in the syringe project. That's once I finally get self-medicate working in my new, with Hyper-V, I'd like to move on to learning more on Go and learning more about the deployment process to the bare metal, forgetting the name at the moment, but how you use the infrastructure as code.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So I've spent some time looking through the syringe code, but I'm not at the point where I've seen changes that I can start implementing yet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I need to. Part of what in fact, what I was going to. Part of what I was. The only thing on my agenda to say today, actually, was that this week for me, prior to heading out for OSS Summit or Open Source Summit in Europe, is to get the Mini Project 1 draft finished finally, and part of that effort will be once the draft is more or less accepted by everybody, and there's been some chances to review it. Before starting the work, I'll be creating a bunch of GitHub issues and labeling them with complexity, high, low, medium, that kind of thing. And that's all syringe is the scope of that. So I would say heads up for that. That's probably next. My hope is that while I'm gone, the majority of the the MP1 document review can take place. That way, when I come back, I can just do that, and then effectively we can start the work.
Okay. I read through your recent submissions to the MP1 yesterday, so I'm familiar with that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's still super messy. It's part of what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to clean it up. There's a lot in there that's unstructured, and there's also a lot that's not in there that needs to be. So it's a big project. I mean, it's basically redesigning it's redesigning the project that is at the core of all of this. Syringe does all the heavy lifting. So it required me to do a decent amount of prototyping outside of syringe, just so that I understood more about how I wanted to do certain things. And then that way I had at least something to write in the doc, and then present it. Of course, you have to write it out in certain ways and all of that. And there's message bus designed, and there's data modeling, there's different API architectures and all kinds of stuff, different ways we could do it. I'm hoping to build in different decisions instead of just saying here's how it is going to be. I mean, there's some places where I think stating the direction is both obvious and important. So like just as an example, like moving to NATS, there's really not an alternative. It's kind of an obvious choice. but
Correct.
whatever. Maybe somebody has an idea that I didn't think of. That's fine. There are other places like where I with data like data modeling in Syringe specifically is currently in Protobuf, and it's possible to use that with Postgres. In fact, it seems like a lot of people do that. But there's also shortcomings like in order to provide like schema validation in code, you have to like use some separate project from Lyft, which is functional, but it smells a little bit. So part of another part of this doc is just to put together a list of things that I currently think should be done, and then hopefully somebody who has experience with that particular aspect of things can come in and say, hey, I have this better way. What do you think about it? So that's the idea. Hopefully, and a week and a half is obviously a pretty compressed amount of time to try to do all of that in. So I'm anticipating having, probably to solicit some help maybe in the weeks after. So more than likely the work isn't going to meaningfully start until December, I would expect. But hopefully earlier. In fact, we more than likely can start some aspects of the project earlier, and then just and continue to gather feedback as we go. Anyway, that's where my head's at with that.
Matt, did you also, were you able to sort things out for the train tickets for Olivier students?
I didn't get, he said he was going to respond again with details on when the schedule and the trains they want, and he didn't.
Okay, ping him again.
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay.
I'll do that now, actually.
All right. Anything else we need to discuss today?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, the only thing on my plate right now, I'm trying to just stay single-threaded on finishing the MP1 doc. It's a beast, so it needs persistent focus. But
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to get it done by the end of the week. That's my goal. But there's just a lot involved, so it's still, I would still consider it a stretch goal. But I'm trying to keep it the only thing I'm doing this week.
Fair enough. All right. Stephen, anything from you?
I'm still working on the changes that Olivier suggested with self-medicate and trying to get self-medicate to correct or the vagrant to self-correct or at least identify issues, such as if the tool for setting the host updater tool does not work, either fails or is not installed, that it prompts for manual editing of the host file. So there's a few things I'm working on related to self-medicate.
Hey, Stephen, one thing that I'm curious about, I actually don't know if this is the case. The main reason for the host name update is so that we can coordinate ingresses that are created by Syringe. So first off, not just the ones that are created by Syringe, but the one that's also deployed, so you can get to Syringe, as well as Antidote Web. They all use that host name. I thought I read somewhere, and I have to verify this, and I haven't had a chance to test it, that you can use an asterisk as the host name in the ingress. And if that was the case, we wouldn't need to update the the host file at all. It would just be able to receive traffic on the port and route everything accordingly. Because there's only one place to route syringe traffic, right? And same thing with internet web traffic. It's not like there's a load balancing decision to be made. It all goes to the same place.
Sure.
So that might be worth trying. The way that you would try that is you would need to update the ingress definition in the manifests directory so that traffic can get to syringe in the first place, as well as the internet web. But internet web's the default, so it'll work kind of regardless. But just update both. And then to make sure that all HTTP presentations work, you'll also want to see if you can set the syringe domain environment variable to an asterisk. I haven't tested it yet, so I have no idea if this is going to even work. But those would be the two places that you would want to touch to see if it works. And if it does, it might save you some time on the host updater, because if you don't need to do that, I mean, that's your call. But it seems to me that's an option. Yeah.
I can see the host updater being nice of having a single URL, but I think most people who would be working on the system would be familiar with accessing through the IP directly.
Yeah. Well, it's what everybody tries to do by default. You know, it's
right.
We have to.
The first thing I tried.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the intuitive first step, and then we always have to explain there's some weirdness here. So being able to eliminate that might be good.
Okay. And then with that, I was trying to find a way to get the IP address of the container. When using Vagrant with VirtualBox, you provide the IP address. But using Vagrant with Hyper-V, it uses your network card and pulls off of the DHCP server. So. Yeah, and that's where host updater started failing for me. So having a note that, hey, this host file may not be accurate is something that I wanted to fix. But a asterisk would definitely resolve that, if that works.
Yeah, give it a try. If you run into issues, let me know. Maybe there's something I can adjust on the syringe side. But the big question is, does the Kubernetes or I guess it would actually, to be honest, it would probably come down to the Nginx ingress controller that we're currently using, if that supports wildcards. So we'll see. Let me know if that works, and we can make decisions after we have that data.
Okay. I'll start testing this. I'll load up my old Vagrant environment with VirtualBox so I can start testing that first.
Cool.
Thank you.
I'm good, Lisa.
Do we have Derek join? Is that why I see NRE Labs?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Anything from you today? I think you may have missed our vote. We voted unanimously to pass the governance doc.
Okay. And I do we nominate people for things?
Not at this time. I will put an announcement in the announcements thing. We settled on having the election about a month from now, so I'll have to look at the calendar and figure out what date is the appropriate date. And then we'll need to go recruiting candidates and nominees, and people can start nominating themselves in that thread as well. So I will do that after the fact. I do need to drop because I have to get to another meeting. But I can just leave the call open if others have anything else to discuss. Otherwise, we can end the call here.
I think we're good,
Clap.
Robin.
Anyone else? All right. Ciao, folks.
All right. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.